So I hope now you are able to see the slide, and we will have a quick recap of what we discussed previously. So we have seen that someone who has the knowledge of stylistics, that person has language-based evidence. And why do we require language-based evidence? Because in order to be, we support or challenge the subjective interpretations of and evaluations. So when we read a work and when we critically analyze that thing, that is a type of interpretation. That part interpretation is a subjective interpretation, because any person who has read a work can provide a critical analysis of that work. So the validity of that analysis is to be ascertained by a person who has a detailed knowledge of the workings of morphology, phonology, lexis, syntax, semantics, and various discourse and pragmatics models. So this is also a scope or a definition of what stylistic covers in the Routledge Handbook of Stylistics we have seen. We have also seen that how this word stylistics has a multiple layers of meaning. So when we talk about style, then the meaning is, one meaning is form, one meaning is shape. It is also associated with fashion, and it is also associated with how something is done or built. Then if we take into consideration stylist, then a person involved in designing the appearance of something other than literature. But we have a word stylician for that purpose, someone who is dealing with a text, someone who is analyzing a text, and someone who has a detailed knowledge of linguistics. Then stylistic is an adjective, and we have this stylistic feature, such type of phrases we can use, stylistic models, such type of phrases we can use. And stylistics is the study and interpretation of text of all types, of spoken or written, which has some language used. So we can analyze any type of work. That work has some linguistic features. We have seen that how stubborn interpreters, they impose their meaning, and how they succeeded in imposing their meaning on us, as many of us believe that to read and understand Derrida is a difficult task. uh, to understand what Zizek said, it's a difficult task, or to read and understand what Bloom has said, that is also a difficult task. So they are actually stubborn interpreters, and how they became stubborn interpreters, because they had the knowledge of this linguistics. They have the knowledge of this various branches of linguistics, starting from phonology and to pragmatics. So that's why they succeeded in imposing their meanings on us. And we have seen that there have been various attempts to define stylistics, and one such attempt was done by Charles Hockett. And what it says, the utterances in the same language which convey approximately the same information, but which are different in their linguistic structure, can be said to differ in style. So this one definition we find in Hockett's work, published in 1958. Then Oman says style lies in the process of selecting one of the many option, or one of the many optional transformations. So again, this selecting process is also very important. How we select something, and this selecting process is based on the context. We recognize a context, and then we select appropriate word, because we know that for one concept, for one thing, we have more than one expression, but we also know that which expression will be appropriate in a particular context. So we have formal context, informal context. Likewise, in different fields of study, in different subjects, we have different registers. For example, if you go to a bank, then you will hear these terms like account, credit, debit, and other words, interest. So the meaning of interest for an ordinary person is different, and that interest means likes and dislikes. So what is your interest? If someone raises a question, what is your interest, then we think of like the person is asking about our likes or dislikes. But in banking sector, interest means something different. So this is how the same word and it changes its meaning, and there is a process of selection that we will also look at in future slides. Then we have seen this example that how the same thing can be said differently. So we have one such example, like after dinner the senator made a speech, and we have three different stylistic variants. When dinner was over, the senator made a speech. A speech was made by the senator after dinner. The senator made a post-prandial speech. So all these expressions, they are different variants. Now it depends upon the process of selection, at which expression we want to use. So that option, that facility is always there with us, depending upon how we want to construct, how we want to phrase that particular utterance or sentence. Now we have also discussed that what are the problems that are associated with synonymy, because we know that no two words have the same meaning. They can have a similar meaning or similar expressions, but they can't have the same meaning. So when we talk about synonymy, we need to understand that we are not talking about sameness, we are talking about similar. So these two expressions are different. Sameness has a different connotation and similarity has a different connotation. So no two words are same, but they are similar. We have seen this example of Kamal, Pankaj, and Neeraj, and one conceptual meaning that is associated with them is lotus. So Kamal means also lotus, Pankaj means also lotus, and Neeraj means also lotus. But Pankaj is something more than lotus. Neeraj is something more than lotus. Pankaj means a lotus, and that lotus born out of mud. Then Neeraj means lotus, and what type of? Born out of water. And Kamal means simply lotus. So we have seen that in these three words, we have one layer that is common. And what layer that is common? That is lotus is same. In Kamal, in Pankaj, in Neeraj, lotus is same, but one layer is different. And which layer is different? In Pankaj, it is born out of mud, and when it is Neeraj, then born out of water. So these two layers are clearly perceivable. We can see these two layers very clearly when we analyze these words. So said, we have said that second layer of meaning is stylistic meaning. So two layers. One is the conceptual that remains same, and one is that stylistic, and the stylistic is different. So we can easily see the two layers of meaning. So this additional layer of meaning comes into being when linguistic features get associated with non-linguistic variables of discourse and context. So it depends upon the communicative assumptions, conversational setting, sender, receiver, topic. So these things are actually non-linguistic variables, and stylistic meaning or additional layer of meaning is associated with non-linguistic variables. So you need to understand that we are talking about two layers of meaning. One layer of meaning is conceptual, uh, that that builds a concept in your mind. For example, if I say tree, then tree is a conceptual word. So you can think of any tree. You can think of pine tree, fine. You can think of banyan tree. You can think of any tree. But you know the difference between a pine tree and a banyan tree, in a eucalyptus tree. So these differences are also there. But what is the conceptual conceptual meaning that all are tree, but all are different. So such type of thing is there. If I say the word dog, then you can think of any variety of dog. Pomeranian is one variety, bulldog is another variety, uh, Alsatian is another type of variety. So you have different types of dogs, but the conceptual meaning, the conceptual thing that remains same. So whether it comes to a Pomeranian or Alsatian or a bulldog, fine. You have this dogness that remains same in that. So two types of meaning. One layer is conceptual, another layer is stylistic. That difference you need to make. So how this thing happens actually, this selection procedure we are talking about. So when a person opts for one in place of another, so let's say I am opting for Neeraj in place of Kamal, right? So that type of thing is there. I am selecting a bulldog in place of Pomeranian. So obviously, like when can I select bulldog in place of Pomeranian? So Pomeranian is like very small, fine, looks fragile, but when it comes to bulldog, then it's like a big built, strong dog. Or when it comes to Alsatian, so you understand like if I have these additional concepts in my mind, let's say strength, power, ferocious, then I will go for that type of dog. And I have, if I have a concept of like smallness, a pretty, furry dog, fine, and a weak dog, then I will go for Pomeranian. So that type of thing is always there. That when a person opts for one in place of another, he signals this additional connotative meaning. So that means like I want to convey that, like we use metaphors, and if someone says like he is a bulldog, fine, or he was barking me at like bulldog. So that is a different meaning. Like someone is barking at you like bulldog, then you can understand like a very ferocious image you want to create in the mind of the receiver. Similarly, we have seen previously uh, smile. We say like she smiled, and like an alligator. So now, like an alligator, again that type of comparison. Like alligator is not like a genuine smile. Alligator is not like a pleasant smile. So it's like a wickedness we want to associate it with that. So this additional connotative meaning along with the meaning which is broadly referential and conceptual. So you can use either referential or conceptual. That is, smile is a smile, but smile can be a fake smile, and smile can be a real smile. Smile can be a wicked smile, smile can be an innocent smile. So this real, fakeness, and all other things which are associated with smiling, that is again the additional connotative meaning we want to convey. So these two meanings you need to keep in mind: conceptual and or referential, that is one, and then second is additional, and that is the stylistic meaning. So these two types of meaning we have. So again, now we will focus on like, are two words synonymous? We have previously discussed that two words are synonymous, no doubt about it. But what is the concept of synonymy we want to focus on? That when we say like two words are synonymous, then what we are actually trying to indicate. So what it says, like it is wrong to assume that if two words are synonymous, there is no difference between them. So generally we have this concept of sameness that we associate wrongly with synonymy. Synonymy is never sameness. Synonymy is always similar. So we need to understand that even when we say synonymy, then again we are indicating some difference between them. Otherwise, what is our understanding that when we talk about difference, then we have a different word, different concept like antonymy. So we use like synonymy is for sameness, antonymy is for difference. But here we are making an argument that it is wrong to assume that if two words are synonymous, there is no difference between them. There is very much a difference, and we have seen with our examples like Kamal, Pankaj, and Neeraj. So there is a layer of meaning that is same, but there is also a layer of meaning that is different. For example, a lotus is equal to Kamal, and Pankaj is lotus plus born out of mud, and Neeraj is lotus plus again born out of water. So this difference we need to keep in mind, that synonymy is not always sameness, but it is also a difference that we need to find when we think about synonyms or synonymy. So this simply means that there hardly exist cases of absolute synonymy. Yes, we will never find absolute synonymy when it comes to language. So this suggests that meanings are layered. So synonymous expressions on one layer of meaning are same. So we need to understand meaning as something that is layer, so like a coating that we have. So generally when we have a whitewash, or when we use different paints, when we color our walls or any other furniture, then we have different type of coatings on that. So similarly, when it comes to the meaning of a particular word, we have different types of coating. So one layer, that is the sameness that is there, and another layer is what is different. So these two layers when we have, then we have the complete meaning that is of a word. So we can call second layer of meaning stylistic meaning. But we need to understand this thing if we consider these questions. First question is, how does this additional layer of meaning come into being? So we say like there is an additional meaning, additional layer of meaning, and there is one conceptual layer of meaning. So how does this additional layer of meaning come into being? Something is coming into being, but how? That is the point. Second thing is, can this additional layer of meaning exist without the help of referential or conceptual meaning? So what we are trying to say, for example, Pankaj means lotus plus born out of mud. Neeraj means lotus plus born out of water. So we are saying that if we remove lotus from these two words, Pankaj and Neeraj, and simply born out of mud and born out of water is there, then is there a possibility? Is there a possibility that we remove the conceptual meaning lotus with these words, and then again they will remain meaningful? That possibility we are trying to raise. And second thing is, what is the relationship between conceptual and stylistic meaning? Conceptual means referential meaning, what one thing refers to, that type of meaning, and stylistics meaning, that is the additional layer of meaning. So what is the relationship between these two type of meanings? So what is the relationship between when I say Pankaj, and then two types of meaning? One is conceptual, that is lotus and born out of mud. Then when I say Neeraj, then lotus and born out of water. So what is lotus and born out of mud? What is the relationship between them? And then lotus and born out of water, what is the relationship between them? That we are trying to study. Then if the additional layer of meaning comes into being through a process of selection, now this process of selection is important. This phrase process of selection is important. Who or what controls or conditions this choice? So when we talk about this process of selection, and when we say like individuals, they have a free will to select a particular word. For example, when you talk about your interest, and when you are not in a banking sector, then generally you are talking about your likes and dislikes, that okay, I'm not interested in that. But when you talk about interest, particularly in the banking sector, then you are talking about a different concept. So this process of selection, it seems like someone who wants to talk about the banking process, then the person will use the word interest in that context. And when the person is not in the banking sector, person is talking about likes and dislikes, then person can also use interest. So but the thing is like, what controls? So here broadly it seems the context controls, like in a particular context you are, then the type of process and selections you make. But these four questions are important when we deal with uh, the issues associated with conceptual meaning, referential meaning, stylistic meaning, or additional layer of meaning. So how come additional layer of meaning comes into being? We have previously discussed that it is purely a non-linguistic variable. So this additional, this stylistic meaning comes into being when we have this non-linguistic variable. And this non-linguistic variables we have previously discussed, it depends upon the discourse context. And what are those discourse contexts? Communicative assumptions. So assumptions, they also play an important role. Assumptions, they also play an important role when you are conducting your research. So it is always said that you need to design, or you need to state your assumptions in a manner so that it will not lead to it will not lead to some invalid assumption. So you have a valid assumption and you also have some invalid assumption as well. So based on these assumptions, then you form a hypothesis, and then later on you try to check whether hypothesis is valid or not. And we have different type of testing of hypothesis. Like one such test is like ANOVA test, fine, and then t-test. So all such tests are associated with hypothesis testing. Conversational setting, sender, receiver, topic, etc. We have previously discussed as well. So stylistic significance is attributed to linguistic features only where language offers variation and choice for selection. So what we are saying now, that how this thing happened, that stylistic significance is attributed to linguistic features only where language offers variation and choice of selection. So this additional feature that we are associating with that. Now we will discuss this choice of selection as well. So when the choice between grammatical and lexical alternate is mappable into variable of discourse features, the stylistic meaning and its significance becomes apparent. So we have a choice in a sense like grammatical or lexical alternates. What we are talking about, let's say there is a word like hate and there is a word like dislike. So these are lexical alternates. So you can use like I hate I hate cricket. Like someone says I hate cricket. That is one type of statement. Now I can replace hate with dislike. So I can also say I dislike cricket. So this is a lexical alternate that I am making. Fine. So when the choice between grammatical or lexical alternate is mappable into variable of discourse features. So what is that variable? Variable is like if I say, when I say I hate cricket and I dislike cricket, do they mean same? So you will say no, no, they do not mean same. Then if I say like what is the difference, you will say like when you say I hate cricket, then your intensity is more. It is more intense. And when you say I dislike cricket, then intensity is less. So this thing you need to find out, like how hate is different from dislike. Similarly, I love cricket and I like cricket. So if I say like both mean same, when I say I love cricket and I like cricket, then you will say no, no, no. I love, again, it's like a positive intensity towards cricket, and more emotionally attached you are with cricket. And when you say like I like, then that intensity is less. So these are the variables of discourse features, and these are the variables that we have. So that means, this also means that style is not merely form, because previously when we said like style is a form, style is a style is a shape, but here it is not simply a form or manner or way of saying something. So it's not like instead of saying like this, uh, like after dinner the senator made a speech, I can say when the dinner was over the senator made a speech. So it's not like a variation, simply a variation, or it is not simply like the shape or design of something that we need to understand, but style is something more. So what is that style means? That style is meaning. So now here directly we are saying that style is not simply form, but style is meaning. And secondly, the very existence of style is pointed out by Koch. Split semantics. Semantics, you know that the field of study, and under semantics we studies the study of meaning. So two conceptual. It's split semantics into two conceptual and referential meaning. Conceptual and referential meaning, that is one type of, which is the area of meaning common to its variants, and stylistics meaning, which is a semantic differential that comes into being by the very act of selecting one variant as opposed to others made available by language. So this is like we have two, conceptual and referential meaning that is common to the variants. So what is the conceptual and referential meaning? For example, when we have a word like Kamal, Pankaj and Neeraj, then lotus is the conceptual and referential meaning. That is because three different variants, Kamal is one variant, Pankaj is another variant, and Neeraj is another variant. But commonness, the conceptual meaning is one. But when it comes to stylistic meaning and the semantic differential, that comes into being by the very act of selecting one variant as opposed to the others made available by a language. So language provides us these three variants that, okay, you can use any one. I'm just saying three, but Lotus has a lot many other synonyms as well. But here we have taken into consideration only three examples. So still, I'm saying like, okay, language is providing this facility that you can either go for this, you can go for that. So X, Y, Z. So you can select any, but that selection is based on the discourse context, as we have seen the variables of non-linguistic variables of discourse context, that becomes important here. So and likewise, when we look at holistically that how language is understood, then we also know that context plays an important role, and that communication is realizes into a context. So whatever is said, that is that is actually realized into context. So even we use these type of trivial examples that John hit Mary, then we know that not the whole of John hit the whole of Mary. We know that the part of John hit the part of Mary. Or even when we use like I can hear you, and this communication realizes into a context, and the meaning becomes that, okay, your voice is audible. So that context, that discourse context plays an important role. And since as a speaker we are aware of all the knowable contexts that are available, so we use all our background knowledge that is there. And Bhaktin, he has used this term concrete living totality for that type of knowable context, and that's why this context converts into a discourse. So I stop here, and if you have any doubt, you can raise your doubt and ask your any question what we have discussed.